Greetings everyone, it has been a while, so welcome back to the Garage Rookie. I'm getting a coffee before we start. Our date is going to be a long day, and yeah, let me show you what I'm doing. I'm currently working on a 2018 GMC Acadia, and I'm tackling a very common issue in this engine, which is a code P0128. It points out that the engine is not reaching proper operation. So you see, I've been here for 20 minutes and it's still cold. It's never get warms. And what we're gonna do is, instead of jumping into replacing it right away, I'm gonna walk through everything to make sure that it mechanically is doing well before suggesting a full repair. So that's what I'm gonna do. And it turned out that I actually had to replace the thermostat. So I'm using the real part and some of the things I'll be using today. Love these sockets. But either way, let me show you what I'll be working on. So for me to get to the thermostat, I have to remove this section, the middle section as well. And I also have to remove the battery just to make myself some space. It's like there's a well, I was going to say tip. But there's a pipe over here that I have to replace, so that's what I'm gonna work on. I do want to say that before, even though I was running the scanner to confirm the code, we saw it that it was P0128, and I want to say that I did wanted to run some tests before starting or before suggesting to replace the thermostat. I started by checking the actual engine behavior. In this case, I noticed right away that the temperature gauge needle wasn't moving. It just stayed there cold, and even after driving it for a while, and then just to be transparent, I was driving it in the parking lot, it wasn't warming up. So that was the first red flag, if I can say that. The next one, it was the coolant level. It was pretty full. The heater performance, that thing was blowing hot air. That's it. It wasn't blowing cold air either. And I was also looking for leaks and I didn't find one. So at that moment, TBD, y'all. But either way, let me walk you through what I'm gonna have to remove right now to get to the thermostat, which is like pretty hidden, I would say. It's like all the way down there, but I have to remove this intake. This is where the pretty much the air filter is, to remove this baby. And then I'll remove look, the thermostat, it's like hidden right there. Now I'm gonna remove the middle section. The first one is off, and then removing some of the sensors, getting to the back as well, and removing this parts, which is pretty easy. I would say pretty easy in terms of you just have to lift it. But I'm not gonna lie, it took me a while to get here. Just making sure that all the sensors were being removed. There are a lot of small parts, but this thing is on top of this too. And then you just have to lift. And as I'm going through it, I know I'm gonna start putting some of my items here, so I make sure I don't lose track of everything. So 3 big things, but you will see them in a second. I do have to get to the back of this to be able to remove the middle section. That's the throttle right there. It's pretty clean actually, so yeah. Either way, let me walk you through. You will see on the bench, but the intake manifold was there. Then we're gonna have to remove the engine plastic cover, which is this part, but I have to get to those bolts in the back. And then, as I mentioned, I'm gonna remove part of the engine as well. I mean, not engine, battery. But all right, so as I work through this, let me walk you through what the thermostat does, and why is it very important. It controls the flow of the coolant to the radiator. So when the engine is cold, it stays closed, so the engine warms up very fast. But once it hits like optimal temperature, usually I would say around 195 to 210, it opens up the coolant to flow and maintain the temperature. So you don't want an engine to be too hot, and you also don't want it to be too cold either. But yeah, if the thermostat is stuck open, like in this case, the coolant flows too early and the engine never gets warm, and that can cause like poor fuel economy, you can increase emissions, especially in California, I guess. Emissions are very important. It should be important everywhere, but whatever. And your car can slow down. It's like pretty sluggish, but long term, it can, wear due to your engine can wear down because it never gets to reaching proper temperature. So you want to make sure that your engine is working well at all times. I also wanted to talk about that this is a very common problem on the GM V6 engine, especially in the cars that were built in 2017 through 2019, I would say. Specifically their Acadia models. GM uses a plastic thermostat housing that tends to fail with time. So, sometimes it gets stuck open. So if you're seeing a P0128, it means that the gouge stays cold and then on high temperature, so whatever. So I'm removing this. Those are the 8 bolts that you have to remove to get access to it. And I do want to mention that as I'm looking at the intake port, I noticed something that I want to talk about. This area is super dark. A lot of carbon buildup is happening here. So wait, I do want to say that I'm gonna cover this so nothing falls in them, so I don't want anything to fall on it because then it becomes a nightmare taking everything out. But please make sure that if you're seeing a lot of darkness, use a high quality synthetic oil and change it more frequently than the basic. Usually, they recommend to change it every 5,000 miles, but I would say, if you're seeing a lot of dark, maybe you should do it sooner. Use a fuel system cleaner every few thousand miles to help reduce carbon buildup. I would say, let the engine warm up a little bit before doing a hard drive. And it helps because it helps the oil to reach proper viscosity and improves the engine as well. And of course, fix cooling system issues quickly so it doesn't reach. So again, an engine that doesn't reach the temperature that helps it run rich, it burns more fuel and then it wears out way faster. So I'm just cleaning on the sides right now. And again, I just want to make sure that nothing falls inside the intakes because then it becomes a nightmare to clean this thing up. But I'm almost halfway there. Even though I feel like this YouTube video is roughly going to be a 15-minute video, it took me hours to get to this section. But whatever, it is what it is. The thermostat is right there, so I'm making an accent. So I want to remove the battery so I can pull the pipe that I mentioned. This way, it gives me more liberty to work on. So I'll start with that. It's like down here. I'm gonna pull the pipe to release the thermostat pretty much. So I have to remove part of the whole battery. And I would say that I had a few complications, and I think that's the part. Usually you would think that a job, it takes whatever it takes, whether it's 1 hour, 2 hours, or whatever. But in this case, you encounter a lot of issues as you go. So I couldn't remove the battery. This thing is stuck, so I'm gonna use W40 pretty much to try to lose up this part of the battery and then pull it out. But again, I'm just gonna say it takes time. And also, if you have a memory that needs some vitamins, I would say that make sure that you label some of the parts. I have a new gasket ready, and you just have to be a little bit patient when you reassemble everything. Once the thermostat is replaced, you should see that the temperature gauge go right back to the middle, and the P0128 code is clear pretty much after you're driving. But I'm just getting there ready, but not fully there. I'm removing the computer. So this is a section. It has 3, I don't know if I can call it plugs, but you're gonna lift up the computer from this part. Is fairly easy, I would say, and you don't have to remember what what is it called, the colors are, because it actually shows you there, so it's all good. And I was finally able to remove part of the battery thing attachment. So Let me lift this baby up and we see. So actually, you know, now I have access to it. It gives me more space, but I think I'm still going to pull this trade up. Yeah, the thermostat is right there. You see it? Right there, right there. I do have to move some of my items over here, so it's just give me 1 second. I was pretty happy. I actually didn't have the proper tools, and I bought this one a couple of months ago. Like months. When I say months, I say months. And I got it at Harbor Freight, and I never used it, but today's the day. You know, you just never know when you're gonna use that one thing that you bought months ago. So it's perfectly working. And I would say this space is super tight, so just make sure that you have small, like what is it called, sockets, I would say, that can reach there. This is a waffle, I think it's called. You know, and it just get easier, but I'm trying everything. And then I would say this is the part that it took me hours, actually, trying to figure it out, which socket to use. You know, what was the right one? I tried to use a wrench as well, but it was too big. And finally, I was able to release the thermostat. It's this one over here. This is what I'm replacing. And one thing that I like doing, I match the old part with the new part. So it makes me, this is for me to make sure that I'm replacing the correct part and nothing, and I will not have any issues in the future, you know. So this is the new one. And here's the old one, so I put them right next to each other. And like my boy Chris fixes, all with the, no, what is it called? Out with the old, in with the new, I think it's called. Nice. Anyway, we'll start off. I do have to go get some. Okay, let me put this. You know, I will say I'm better with my fingers now. I can reach very small parts. But whatever. Yeah, so right now I have put the new thermostat, and you know, it is what it is. It took me a while to get here, but it's fun. It's fun, I would say. I would say it took me almost about 6 hours. I know you may think I'm being over dramatic, but again, I just kept encountering small issues, like I couldn't remove a part because it was stuck, or I didn't have the tools, so I have to go get something, like dig through my car to find it, and so on. So that's the reason mostly why it took me a while. Then, you know, I took water breaks and so on. But at this point, it's everything set up. I'm gonna put everything back in place, connect all the sensors, and we'll see about it. I did want to mention that, oh yeah, it's right there. You couldn't see it. I did clean the intakes a little bit though, you know, just like remove some of the buildup. And I do have to go to get some coolant though, because I don't have any. I realized that afterwards. I'm like, oh yeah. Either way, I'm getting the coolant right now, so you can go to AutoZone. I'm getting the GM, so make sure that if you're using a GM, that is actually the one. But yeah, here we are. Everything is set up. It was pretty fun working on this car, and you know, replacing the thermostat. Everything is back in place, and I'm very excited. This is literally my first biggest job that I ever had. So I'm gonna put some coolant on it, and I'm gonna run the engine and to make sure that I don't get the same code, that P0128. So here's the baby, and thank you so much for coming, and then nice seeing y'all, everyone. Again, I appreciate your time. Peace.